Hi everyone! Another exciting week of our What's in Your Closet Sew Along, which is hosted by Pat Sloan at her website, ilovetomakequilts.com. This week it's all about bottoms, pants, slacks, jeans, shorts. What's your favorite? What do you wear the most? Tell us when you share your completed block over on Pat's Facebook group, Quilt Along with Pat Sloan. If you haven't done so already, jump over to Pat's website, download this week's free pattern, come back here, and I'll show you how I do it. As you may have guessed from the image of this block, it is constructed with sew and flips, and we need to place two on opposite sides on all of our larger blocks. So we should start with 32 of our light squares, and they're in a smaller size, and then 8 each of our medium and dark. As this is all based on sew and flips, I thought I'd take an opportunity to show you various different methods, tools, ways you can use your rulers, etc. to achieve the sew and flips. So let's start with the traditional method. For the traditional method of sew and flip, we take our smaller squares and we draw a diagonal line in one direction, corner to corner. We line this up in the corner of our larger square, making sure that all of our edges are even. We then take that to the machine and we stitch 1/4 of an inch. No, we don't. We don't stitch 1/4 of an inch. We stitch just to the right of the drawn line. In many tutorials, they tell you to stitch on the line, but that doesn't allow for any fabric that may be taken up by your thread when you fold that back over to make sure that you've maintained squareness on the block. So I like to stitch just to the right of the line, as you can see me doing here, and that takes care or makes an allowance for the amount of fabric that will be taken up by that thread when we fold it back over. So now that we have stitched that line, we will fold this back over first to check that all of our edges are still lining up and everything is square. Once you're happy with what you've produced, you can press that into place. You can check on the back as well, make sure nothing's hanging over on the back. I then press that into place and then trim away those back 2 layers. I'll repeat those same steps for the opposite corner, so diagonally opposite this one, and we need to, as I said, place these on all 8 or all 16 in fact of our squares. So this is the traditional method. Okay, hopefully that was easy enough for you to follow, and contrary to what normally happens, I actually got it right on the first time. Normally when I'm filming, it's always off a bit, which is a great teaching moment and shows that I'm human. Anyway, let's move on to the next method, and this is using any standard quilting ruler. I just happen to have my 1x12 inch ruler here, but all you need to do is locate that 1/4 inch line and then line that 1/4 inch line up across on the diagonal from corner to corner, and then slice that off, take it to your machine and stitch 1/4 of an inch. So to make sure that my 1/4 of an inch is right on, I guess I use what's called a scant 1/4 of an inch. I just move my needle over by 0.1 of a position. I'm not sure how your machine works, but just sewing the 1/4 of an inch will be okay to maintain accuracy. Now we're going to use a ruler that has our 45-degree lines on, and this is my 6.5 by 12.5. We locate that spot where the 1/4 inch crosses over on the 45-degree angle on the ruler, and we place it, as you can see me doing here, the straight edge down the bottom, that little triangle is off to the side, and then the straight line down the other edge of the block, and we can trim that off and sew our 1/4 of an inch. Hopefully that made sense. It's just locate where those 45-degree lines cross over on your ruler, place it along the bottom edge of the smaller square and down the right hand side of the larger square, making sure the little triangle where they cross over on the 1/4 inch is on the right hand side of your fabric. Slice it off and sew away happily. The final and my most favorite method is using the folded corner clipper tool. You knew it was going to come in on this video. The traditional way of using this tool is to line all of the markings up perfectly on that square. So as you can see here, my 2-inch line is on the bottom, it goes up the side there, and then it's on the left-hand side lined up as well. But what I prefer to do, and this is much like the second method I showed with the 1x12 ruler, is just make sure that I've got it perfectly on the diagonal of that square. It's not much different to doing it with lining it up the proper way. I just find that I get better accuracy by just using those other markings and making sure that I am cutting it directly on the 45-degree angle. And once again, my needle position is just over by 0.1 of a setting on what I would normally have it on. We're now going to just put the sew and flip corners, on all of our blocks on both of those sides. So enjoy the music. Because of how we're going to construct these blocks later in this tutorial, we're going to split our lots of 8 of each color here into lots of 4, because we're going to press them in 2 different ways. One lot of 4 we will press out towards that sew and flip corner or the light fabric, and the other set of 4 we will press in towards the darker of the 2 fabrics. And this will allow for us to nest all of our seams when we come to sew these together. Because I already had that one made, I'm only going to be taking 3 more of my medium fabrics to press out towards the corner, and 4 I will press in towards that medium fabric, and the same with the dark ones. We'll press 4 of them out to the sew and flip corner and 4 of them in towards the center. With all of that pressing now done, we will just take each of our stacks of 4 here and separate them into 2 stacks of 2. We'll then lay them out as you can see me doing here. The ones pressed in the same direction go diagonally opposite from each other, and we're just going to be making a tiny 4 patch. Because of the way that we press these, all of those seams will nest. So we'll make our O or our hug out of our dark fabric, and then we'll do the same with our red fabric or our medium fabric, placing those oppositely pressed pieces diagonally opposite each other. And then when we come to sew these together, we will once again have all of our seams nesting. So I'm just going to lay all these out I'm going to make 2 stacks, which you'll see me do in a moment, and then I'll take them to the machine and I'll sew all of our vertical seams using our 1/4 of an inch. Just double checking here that everything is opposing for how we're going to sew these together later. With those vertical seams now sewn, I am just going to clip these off in the sets of 2 that would make up each block, and then we're going to press these. Now, we need to press these in opposing directions so that when we sew our horizontal seam, those seam allowances in the middle there will also nest. So the easiest way I find to do that is to get my little pressing mat with them still clipped together. I lay them out like this in the 2 opposite directions. I then clip that little stitch in the middle, and I know that the top one gets pressed towards the right and the bottom one will get pressed towards the left. That allows us to nest that middle seam, and you will notice as well, because of all of our pressing and the way we paid attention before, that our horizontal seams did actually all nest. And when we go to sew this horizontal seam, all 3 of those intersections will also cross over exactly on 1/4 of an inch or nest just as you would expect. So we'll give those a press, we'll put these 2 together. You'll see that these seams here nest, the seam in the middle will nest, and the 3rd one over there will nest as well, to make sure that when we're sewing this together that all of our points and intersections are perfect. So we'll do this for all 4 of our little 4 patches, and then I'll meet you back. Now that all our horizontal seams are sewn and we've created our little 4 patch units, just pick a direction and press. We now just need to sew these in sets of 2, and because of the way we pressed once again, our middle seam here will nest. Now on where the crossovers are between your hug and your kiss, or your X and your O, I find if I just match up those 1/4 inch seam allowances, they cross over perfectly for me, and that's because I trust my seam allowance the whole way along. But you can use whichever method you need to make sure that they line up. You could use a hang pin, you could draw your little 1/4 inch seam allowance on there and make sure that they are perfect. I don't really worry so much because I trust in my seam allowance and my sewing, and they're generally either spot on or off by less than 1/8 of an inch, as you can see with me pressing that there. But you use whichever method of lining up that you desire. Now we just need to sew our final horizontal seam, and once again our middle seam here should nest. The seams in the middle of each of our blocks should nest, and on this row all of these little intersections should nest again, as we did when we sewed our 4 patches together originally. We'll just now pick a direction and press this, and our block for this week is done. Thanks for joining me again this week, folks. You're a delight, and I really enjoy being here for you. So for you to show your appreciation to me, why don't you like the video, share it with a friend if you think they might enjoy it as well. Click the little subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and why not? It's free. It costs you nothing, but helps me out massively. Most importantly, tickle that little bell icon to be notified of all my future releases, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you liked. Tell me what you didn't like. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you really think. Okay, folks, I will see you all again real soon. Bye for now.